Some children grow up in loud homes, others grow up in quiet ones. But the scariest homes aren't always the loudest. They're the ones where you never knew what would happen next. Maybe nothing happened at all. Maybe everything did. So you learned something very early. Stay quiet, pay attention, don't make it worse. And if this feels strangely familiar, there's a reason, because some children didn't grow up feeling safe at home. They grew up feeling alert. Imagine a child sitting at the dinner table. Everyone else is talking, eating, moving normally, but the child isn't relaxed. Their shoulders are slightly tense. Their eyes move around the room, not obviously, just enough to notice small things. The tone of someone's voice, the sound of a fork hitting the plate too hard, a sigh from across the table, little signals that most people ignore, but this child can't ignore them, because in their home, small signals often meant something bigger was coming. Maybe a parent suddenly exploded over something small. Maybe love felt warm one day and then cold the next. Maybe silence meant anger. Maybe anger meant shouting. Or maybe no one shouted at all. Maybe everyone just pretended everything was fine, which can be even more confusing for a child. Because when nothing is explained, a child starts blaming themselves. Children are wired to believe something very simple. If something feels wrong, but it must be my fault. So they start adapting, they become quieter, more careful, more aware of everyone else's emotions. They learn how to read a room before they even understand their own feelings. And slowly saying them, something changes inside them. They stop feeling safe, not just in their house, but everywhere. Pause for a moment. Think about how you react when someone raises their voice, or when someone suddenly goes silent, or when a message gets ignored. Do you feel calm? Or does something in your chest tighten just a little? That reaction didn't appear out of nowhere. For many people, it started years ago. Children who never felt safe at home often grow into adults who feel responsible for everyone's emotions. They become the peacemakers, the overthinkers, the ones replaying conversations at 2 a.m. Did I say something wrong? Did they mean that the way it sounded? Are they upset with me? Their mind becomes a constant scanner, always searching for danger that might not even exist anymore. And the strange part is, most people around them never notice this. On the outside, they look calm, responsible, empathetic, good listeners. People often say things like, "Oh, so you're so mature, you're sure, you're so understanding, you're so easy to talk to." But what they don't see is where those traits came from, because that emotional awareness wasn't always a gift. Sometimes it started as survival. When a child grows up in an unpredictable environment, their brain learns something powerful. Stay alert, predict moods, control your behavior, prevent conflict before it starts. It's like living with an emotional smoke detector that never fully turns off, and this can follow someone for years, into friendships, into relationships, into work. They become the person who senses tension before anyone else does, the person who notices when someone's tone changes slightly, the person who feels responsible for fixing things that weren't their fault to begin with. But here's the part most people don't realize. Children who never felt safe at home often become adults who feel strangely uncomfortable with calm. Peace can feel unfamiliar. Silence can feel suspicious. Healthy relationships can feel confusing because their brain was trained to expect something else. Another pause. Think about this question honestly. When life finally feels calm, do you relax, or do you start waiting for something to go wrong? For many people, that waiting feeling is leftover survival energy. It's the nervous system remembering a world that no longer exists. The child inside them is still scanning, still preparing, still trying to stay safe. But here's the quiet realization that changes everything. That child wasn't broken, they were adaptive. Their mind did exactly what it needed to do to survive a confusing environment. It became observant, emotionally intelligent, deeply aware of others. These traits didn't come from weakness, they came from resilience. The problem is, survival strategies don't always know when it's safe to retire. So the same awareness that protected someone as a child can become exhausting as an adult, constantly reading people, constantly adjusting, constantly preparing for emotional storms that may never come. But awareness is the first shift. When someone realizes this reaction started somewhere, something inside them softens. They stop blaming themselves for feeling too sensitive. They start understanding the story behind those reactions, and slowly something new becomes possible. Learning that safety doesn't always have to be earned, that calm moments don't always hide danger, that not every silence means rejection, and that the child who once had to stay alert doesn't have to carry that weight forever. Because the truth is, some children grow up without feeling safe, but that doesn't mean they're destined to live their entire lives that way. Sometimes the first real feeling of safety happens much later, not in the house you grew up in, but in the understanding you grow into. And when that happens, the child who spent years watching the room finally realizes something surprising. They don't have to watch the room anymore.